My website's never gotten me a single customer. I really don't know if I'm doing it right. Or maybe they've paid for SEO, but you don't know if it's worked, or you're trying to do optimize for search engines as much as possible, and you're not sure if it works. Well, today we're going to talk about a lot of different things, got a lot to cover. So I specialize in search engine optimization, or SEO, as Mike said, helping companies get found on Google. And by the end of this webinar, you'll know some important Google algorithm ranking signals for 2021, and you'll discover how to use Google Analytics and especially Google Search Console to check site performance. And then you'll understand the 2021 Google algorithm changes that are coming, and you'll learn some common misconceptions about SEO. So my hope is that you'll walk away with more knowledge than you when you first clicked on the Zoom link tonight. It's a lot of information, so let's get started. The Q&A we'll save till the end, but if you have questions as we're going along, perhaps you could type them into the chat, and then Mike is going to help me to navigate those so that I can answer your questions and maybe back up on some slides or discuss different things as we go along. So I'm going to start with the big picture. And why does Google matter? You'll see when I talk about algorithms, I'll keep talking about Google. And the reason is that Google owns most of the market for search. In fact, they own between 88 and 93% of search, and they answer 2 trillion questions a year. Even when people do product searches, about half of those are on Amazon and the other half are on Google. And then people always ask me about DuckDuckGo, and DuckDuckGo isn't in this graphic on the left, but I did research it a little bit, and they have about 1% of the market share. And Google does such a great job. If you have like a Google Home, I have an Alexa Dot and a Dot and an Echo Dot. And when I ask her things, a lot of times she doesn't give me the right answers, or she doesn't really understand what I'm saying. If you have a Google Home, they understand what you're saying. And they even, she can even tell you jokes and things like that. So that's because Google does such a great job with search. And that's why so many people use Google as their search engine. It's not only a search engine, but it's also the website doctor who, if you understand your website data, can advise you if your site is a sick puppy or not, and about your website's health. And it can also, bury you on page 6 of the search returns, or even take you off of search altogether if they feel like you're intentionally violating rules. And you really can see the importance here of Google. So what are some different ways you can get on Google? Well, the first way is on a Google My Business page, and this is a separate function where you sign up for a Google My Business page. And on the right, we have what's called a pack of Google pages, a social pack. And it's really a bunch of Google My Business pages. And on the right, you have a single pack. So that's one way you can get on Google. And this is free, and you want to have it optimized, especially if you work locally. Another way to get on Google is to pay for getting on Google. And that is in Google, what used to be called Google AdWords, it's now called Google Ads. And every time you click, you pay something like, 60 cents to, $15 for every click, every time somebody clicks on and goes to your site. And that's one way to get on Google, is to pay for it. We're not talking about those 2 ways. We're talking about the third way, and that's organic search, where you appear in a listing. And here we have like a home page and an about page. And you'll hear me refer to SERPs, search engine return pages. And so that's really the listing that Google returns for this quote unquote free search. Another way it might have these site links where it breaks out different pages on the website. And then to complicate matters, it doesn't really look just like this anymore, because Google has expanded its organic repertoire to now include things like not only the local packs, but featured snippets, videos. People who asked this also were interested in that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But why does it matter to get on that first page and towards the top of that first page? This is a little bit older data, and this is a great site to go to look at how search works. On the horizontal axis, we have the position on the page. So if you're first, second, third, or up to fifth to ninth, then the 10th starts the bottom. That's the bottom of the first page, and the 11th position is the top. On the blue, we have desktop, and on the red, we have mobile. And most people click on one of these first few links. You can see it goes down dramatically. So I went to this link because I've had this study on my slides for a while. So I went to the link and to see what's been updated, to see if it's changed at all with the emphasis on more people going mobile, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what it looks like. Not a whole heck of a lot different. You can see that on the horizontal axis, positions 1 through 10, it goes down, down, down. There's a little bit of bump at the top of the second page. So if you're at the top of that second page, you actually do a little bit more, you do better in position 11 than in position 10. But this is why search really matters, and getting in a higher position really matters. And it holds true for all devices. This is current data for mobile search, for tablets, for desktop searches. However, the question is, will it begin to shift in March? Next month, Google will launch an update, and it's a totally mobile update. In other words, if you have pages that are on a desktop site that aren't available in mobile, only those mobile pages will be shown in the search engine return pages. Will the other pages still be on the internet? Can they still navigate to them? Yes, of course, but they won't be in the SERPs. So if you want your pages to appear in the SERPs and be able to be clicked on, they have to be mobile friendly. And we'll show you a little bit more about that when I get into more of the analytics. So search has changed. People are more often on their mobile phones now than they are on the desktops, although it depends on the activity and what they're doing. On social media, they're more likely to be on a phone, and then if you're doing your work, you're more likely to be on a desktop, that kind of thing. But search has changed, and not only has it changed it hasn't changed so much in how important the position is, but it's changed in terms of the types of things that appear. So this data that was on the same site now shows what it's like if you're in the search results in organic and in a local pack, and then what is your click-through rate? And you can see that if you're in different positions, you're going to get a higher and higher click-through rate. So if you are in position 1, the 79% click-through rate, CTR is click-through rate. So this just kind of shows you the variety of data, and this goes on and on and on for pages and all sorts of different ways you can sort it. So if you're interested, you can check that out. And then I just wanted to take another step back. So that's kind of the real big picture before we get into the weeds. And I wanted to just say, in case, because it sounded like there were some people maybe who aren't as familiar with how search works. So there's really a couple of steps to it. One is that pages need to be able to be crawled by the robots, what we used to, often called spiders crawling the web, right? And the pages need to be able to be crawled to be able to determine the content on those. And those pages, they look at things like word and code and determine what's on that page. And then what Google does is it indexes them. It kind of is like sorting books in the library shelves. They go through and it says, okay, this is about political science. This is about this is about that. And they use formulas to do that. And those formulas are called algorithms. So that's how they get on the search engine pages with the algorithm. And how many algorithm factors are there? Well, more than 200. So there are a lot of algorithm factors, and you'll be grateful to know that we're not talking about all 200 of them tonight. And there's a really great video, and I have a handout that's available on my website after this. And there's a link, it's to a video. Some of you may have seen it. It's called trillions of questions. And it's a video that Google put out, pretty full, pretty like, I think like 45 minutes long or something like that. It's pretty full length, but it describes in detail how search works. And it's really kind of fascinating, at least it was to me. And talking about how the reason they usually change their algorithm about 6 times a day. And they do that to deter spammers and people from, taking over the internet and returning wrong things on to deter hackers and spammers and keep them off the internet. So that's an interesting YouTube that you can watch. It's on YouTube. The Google algorithm, here's just a few things that it favors. It favors mobile friendly. And as I said, it's going to favor mobile friendly even more starting in March. And that will also include, that update will also include lazy loading. So what they want you to do is to have the top of the page load very fully. And then the bottom of the page, you don't need to have like the things that don't appear on the screen at first don't need to load very fast, but you want to have that top of the screen load very quickly. And that's part of this whole mobile friendly. And I do have a link on the handout that it describes that in more depth, but since that wasn't the focus of today's presentation, I didn't want to focus on that too much, but you can link to the article that I have there and it'll tell you a little bit more. Responsive design, which for those of you who don't know, it's having a site that can go scale to different dimensions, basically, so that it goes on a mobile or a desktop equally well. That it's secure and it's fast. So secure being SSL, and fast, that it loads quickly. And we'll talk in very specific terms about what that means and what factors Google's looking at. And that it clearly communicates to website users. And it has to also, so a site has to do 2 things. It has to clearly communicate to your target audience. It also needs to clearly communicate to the robots that are crawling it, because they have to understand what you're saying. So if you use all images, let's say for navigation, the bots aren't going to be able to understand that. They understand words and code, so that if you don't let it have enough information, then it will not be able to index your page very well and will not return it in the search engines. So I'm going to talk about 3 of the factors that people in SEO, this is not necessarily from Google, but this is what that SEO people who have looked at hundreds and thousands of websites have determined as part of the algorithm. They say links are one of the most important factors. There are 2 kinds of links, and we'll see this in the analytics when we look at it actually in Search Console's analytics. And they're the links between the pages, and that's internally within your website. And that helps Google be able to crawl more pages at a time, because they're all linked together like a spider crawling across, from one page to the next. And especially if it's done correctly, which means you have a word that's kind of a keyword phrase that links from one page to the next. So instead of saying you're going to another page and it says, learn more about our fancy schmancy stuff that we sell, click here, and the link is on click here, that tells the robots nothing. They're going to a website call or a website page called click here. What you want to say is, have the link on learn more about our fancy schmancy stuff, and then it would go to that page. And then external links are backlinks, or links that are coming from other sites to you. And if you have expertise and authority, oh my goodness, look at all this. All right, I'm aware. Okay. If you have expertise, authority, and trust, then more people will link to your site. So it's kind of a reverse thing. So Google is actually looking for you to be expert, the person's website and the person who's like, let's say, authoring a blog, to be an expert and authority and be trustworthy. So some fly-by-night quack is not as likely to get their healthcare information at the top of a SERP as is a medical doctor, or, you know, Mayo Clinic, or, you know, cdc.gov, that kind of thing, that will actually be able to have that expertise, authority, and trust. And that's why people link to them. So backlinks are very important. One more thing I wanted to say about that EAT, and I can say that on the next slide because I know that's about content. The high quality content, in addition to EAT, it really matters for what they call YMYL sites, your money, your life sites. So anything where people are investing their money, or risking their life with your information, that's where this EAT comes in really handy. And Google has in the fall put out a 178-page document about quality. And I have that link on the handout too, about what makes for quality content. And it not only is it high quality, but it's valued and relevant. Well, the thing is about being valued and relevant is it's not valued and it needs to be relevant to your business, yes, but it also needs to be valued and relevant to the person searching. And that's where keywords come in, because it gives you a clue as to what people are really interested in and what they're searching for and what they want to know. And I always say this all the time, but a good Google experience is an experience, or where Google is really focusing its algorithm is on giving people the best user experience possible. And you think about that, you know, fast, secure, friendly, trustworthy, all these things, these are things people want. So it's really creating a high SEO website is really about creating a trustworthy website that's with valuable content. And the third thing that's really important, and this is the really cool stuff that we can't control as much, is RankBrain. And RankBrain is Google's artificial intelligence. It's machine learning, and they've been using it on every single query. And when I say query, I mean when somebody Googles, a search query, since 2016. And it has learned that when people type in Apple, they want to know about the company, not necessarily about a piece of fruit. But if someone puts down apple to eat, it has learned that apple to eat, they're not going to show, an iPhone. So that is how it kind of works. And over time, it understands that people like certain content and they don't like other content. And so it learns over time, well, people really seem to click on and like this content, but you know what? They bounce off this content and they go to the second one. So now we're going to demote that one because the machine has learned that this other one does a better job of answering people's questions, or people stay on the page longer, or seem to, go back to that content or link to it and do other things that make it valuable to those people. And it has it's more and more, it's understanding conversational language. Although I was just on a Google Search Central Hangout recently, and John Mueller, the lead Google Search advocate out of Switzerland, he says it's still really important, those keywords having, even though it might understand that certain words are synonyms, it's still important using the phrase here and there around the page, especially in key locations on the page. And that's probably more of a conversation for another day as well. But he said just very recently, so far, it was in 2021, that it still does matter about the keywords. Not that you put in the little box when they're on the website for SEO that you put a keyword in there, but that you're using the keywords throughout in the content. All right, so let's get to some of the nitty gritty. The first one I want to talk about, I'm just going to talk about a few different things on Google Analytics. And I clipped out a little bit of, this isn't what you see when you're an admin, when you add an account to Google. Now, Google Analytics has come up with a new form of Google Analytics after, 15, 20 years of having pretty much the same Google Analytics, they've come up with a new one. It's called GA4, and they're rolling it out. Supposedly it's out of beta, but I was just talking to someone from Google this week, you know, not a higher up, but, you know, just someone who was helping me out with something that they're still really tweaking GA4, and it looks a whole lot different, and it's going to be a lot different experience, and it has a whole totally different setup. So what she suggested that we do, because I said I really want to stick with the old because that's where I'm really familiar with and I can work with it very quickly and everything. And she said, create it as a separate property. So in these 3 categories across here, so let's say I have my nancyburgess.net website here, and then I create a new property under here that uses the new GA4 tagging and things like that. So I would still have my old analytics property and they also my new. And she suggested doing that for all the sites and, you know, starting to test it out and test drive it and give them more and more feedback because they're still garnering that feedback and implementing it. So Google Analytics is an extremely robust tool. We're just going to focus on a few different things that have to do with organic traffic and making sure that your site is working well. So we're going to talk about how to determine how many users you have or visitors or users you have to your site, the sources of the traffic, you know, how many of them are coming from organic sources versus paid, things like that. We're going to look a little bit at comparing page speed, so you might know where your laggers are if you have certain pages that are having a difficult time. And then we're also going to look at the popular pages of content. So let's take a look at the first one, the visitors and users. What you're going to see is something like this. You go to analytics, you go to acquisition, and then when you pop on the acquisition there, it goes to overview. And when you go to overview, you're going to, that's the one you're going to click on is overview. And then you're going to see a screen, I'm sure you've seen this before, that looks something like this. And what you want to do is up in this corner up here, there's a time range. So you're going to want to adjust that, and I'll show you what that looks like. So here, this is adjusted for, you know, right there, it said July 11th through 17th. It was adjusted for a week. So I changed it to a month. And here's a month of data from that June. So it looks something like this. So we have area 1 where we have the pie chart. We have 2 where we have this vertical. We have this 3. We have the traffic that was on that site. So let's zone in on area 1. Area 1 shows as a percentage how your site is doing. And it's the colors change depending on your site. But in this case, the organic search has the most traffic. Referral traffic could be a variety of different things. It generally uses, I'll talk more about that in a second, but then in direct traffic is people coming directly into the site, like typing an exact URL, or maybe they have saved a link on their site and they're coming in directly without Googling anything. So now let's look at zone 2 here. The cool thing about this is, so users is anybody who's come onto the site during that time frame, or as many, it's almost like a sessions kinds of thing. Well, that's actually sessions, but it's like how many people have come on, and then the new users would be if the people who had unique devices, or they knew, like sometimes Google will know if you came in through your phone or your desktop if they're linked. But if you, let's say you're on a computer at work and you're not logged into Chrome, they won't know that it's you that's searching. So they might count you as a user rather than just one new user, if that makes sense. The cool thing here is that you can actually sort by clicking in on an organic search, and you can see something more. So if I click on organic search, so this is, we go back to here, you click on number 2, and we can see how it changes number 3. If I click on this, I can see what the traffic is. It goes deeper, and you may even see keywords when you click on that. And I'm not going to show you what the keywords were for this site, but you can see if traffic is increased. So like for this person, their organic search is not over this month, it's too short of a time. You would normally do this, well, this is March to February, so this is a year. But what you'd want to see is it building or growing, unless it's already doing really well. Another thing you could look at, I will dive down into, it's like social, like how much, where the different social sources are. So what you might see in organic is the actual keywords that are relevant to the page when you clicked on the organic. And this is what it looks like if you clicked on social. So that gives you a little bit of an advantage if you, rather than, because if everything's increasing, you may think your organic search has gone down if you just look at it as a percent. But if you look at the numbers month over month, or even just at the wave, like, is it increasing, staying the same, or is that blue line that we looked at going down? So another thing I like to look at on Google Analytics is the pages. So you go to behavior, and when you click on behavior, it opens up this, and then I go down to all pages. And it will only show you 10 pages, but it can show you, like you can see this site has 858 pages, and you'll have a graph above. So you want to notice that, but you can have 5,000 pages at a time, and you can also export this. So here's an article I wrote called Google Trends SEO 2019. You can click on that page, and the graph above, you can see this page was doing worse and worse. And it has 2019 in it. Well, it's 2021 now. And that was kind of a mistake that I did. It was a mistake that I did. It wasn't kind of a mistake. I put the URL, I put the number of the year in the URL, and I should have kept that out of the URL, put it maybe in the title tag, maybe in the meta description where I could change it when I updated it. But now I had to go and change the URL to try to get traffic back, and have to redirect that using a 301 to keep any information that it has. So I need to update this page. I haven't done that yet. I'm planning to do that. And then another thing you can look at when you go to behavior is, I wanted to say a little bit something more about this. So with these pages, if they're not doing well, what you want to do is one of a couple of things. You never want to just remove a URL unless it's something, well, there's other ways you can remove a URL if it's never going to be on the page again. But you don't want to have weak pages in your site. You're better off having like 7 strong pages than having 10 weak pages, just for sake of example. Don't quote me on those numbers. But the idea is that you want to have, instead of a lot of different pages with thin content, you want to have robust pages with a lot of content that really give the message, that shows it to Google, that has the message for the users, but it has to be set up in a way that they can easily find and read the information and not have it seem overwhelming, like just a big block of text when you go to it. If you do have pages with thin content, you can consider combining them. You can consider making that page more robust, adding more content to it. But those are some things you might want to look at, like what pages are doing more poorly than other pages. Another thing you want to look at, we want to look at the site speed. And if we look at page timings, what this shows is there's a few pages that are in the red that are doing much worse than other pages. So this is the areas that we can focus on, and you can get it'll actually give you some suggestions as to how to improve the timing on these pages. So what you want to do is know that these are super slow pages, because the tools that Google gives you, you need to do one URL to the next to see what pages are the slowest. It doesn't do the whole site at once. It does a page at a time. So let's talk about one of those tools. You can get to it a couple of different ways. This is one way you can get to it, is through this link. Developers, google.com, speed, page speed, insights. Catchy, right? And it takes you to a page like this. You put in any URL, could be the homepage URL, it could be that one of those slow URLs on there. And then when you click on it, you get something like this. Now I've mixed some data here. This is actually was a google.com, had a 93. I bet not too many of you have seen a lot of those on the desktop. And what they're looking for is 3 things: largest contentful paint, the time to interactive, and the cumulative layout shift. Now, you may think, oh, how important is this? Well, it's starting to become more and more important, but it's going to be definitely important starting in May. Google is, in addition to the March algorithm change for mobile only indexing, they're also rolling out a page experience update algorithm. And the page experience update looks at a lot of different things, like how mobile friendly the site is it secure? And then it looks at these things for which they're calling part of the core web vitals, the largest contentful paint, which is, remember when I was talking about the page loading and that the page at the top, you want to have that top page load. And it's like, how fast does it take to get that first big paint? And you want this to be under 2.5 seconds. You can see they say, this is in the yellow because it's kind of borderline here. It's creeping up there. So they're saying it's in this yellow zone. The time to interactive means how fast is it before you could actually click on something that would work? You know, how long does it take for the page to be interactive? And you want that to be under 2, or no, under, I have to look at that. I'll have to double check that, but it's like it's in milliseconds. And then the cumulative layout shift is a score of 0.1 is what you want it to be. And what cumulative layout shift means is, does the site jump around when it first loads? And the difficulty here, though, this is desktop. The difficulty is that on mobile, this is the very same site. I'm showing you data from the very same site. The largest contentful paint on mobile was 9.9. The time to interactive, 8.1. The cumulative layout shift is dropped into the yellow. So you got 2 reds and a yellow. What Google's going to do is they are going to here it is, 100 milliseconds for the first input delay. The time to interactive. And then what Google's going to do is, if you have all 3 in the green, they're going to, and all the other things in the green, they're going to actually put like a medallion on the website. You know how now you click on a site and it says, you know, not secure or secure? There's going to be some sort of a medallion or something that they're talking about putting on sites that do everything. So one of the things I wanted to show you is that if you click into, let's say, this largest contentful paint, is it will tell you what the problems are. Like it says, eliminate render blocking resources. And then I can click down into that and it says, here's what you need to do. And it even gives you some ways, some plugins. And then it tells you, be careful because plugins may slow down your site. But at the same time, it says, use these plugins. So that's kind of interesting. All right, so I imagine there might be some questions by now, but I'm going to keep moving on. I'll take a breath here for a second. A lot of people haven't really heard of Google Search Console so much, and Google Search Console is really the place to go for the performance of your website. So Google Analytics is like kind of like child's play. You know, there's like some things in there that you can look at, and, you know, but really, if you want to know if your site can do well in organic search, where you need to be is in Google Search Console. So when you set up a site, it's a good idea just to go ahead and set up that Google Search Console site with every new site that you launch. And once it's set up, it's just a wealth of data. Today, we're going to look at just about everything in it. So the overview, the performance, URL inspection, coverage or crawl areas, coverage or crawl errors, popular pages, sitemap removals, core web vitals, mobile usability, and links. So lots to look at there. So let's just go in order. We're going to start with the overview. So the overview is what it says, an overview. You see how this matches performance, coverage, enhancements. So it's kind of an overview of what we're going to dive into. And so yeah, this is just part of that overview. So just showing that. Okay, and then performance, when you click on performance, there's going to be 4 things you see across. First of all, there's a date here, and this can be changed and altered. What you won't see is if you just set this up, let's say tomorrow, you won't start seeing data for a couple of days, and then it'll all be blank before that time. So when you, same thing with analytics, you won't get the data until you set it up. But it shows you the total number of clicks, total number of impressions, the click-through rate, and the average position. So the average position you want to be low, the other ones you want to be high. Impressions is any time that your site has been shown in a SERP page. Now it may be shown on page 6, so it may not be seen, but it has been shown, so that's an impression. And then the clicks are when it's actually been shown and someone has chosen it, you know, pick me, pick me. And usually the click-through rate is very dependent on where your position is, as we talked about before. The higher up you are in the search engine returns, the more likely you are to get clicks and have a higher click-through rate. So let's look at, we're gonna, on this report, below where it says clicks, impressions, things, and you have the chart, you can export this. Now it exports in one whole big file. So if you export it, you have all of this. But what you can look at first is the queries. And I'm going to show you, I've mixed some people's data here so that I'm not sharing anything, you know, any secrets or anything. But here's some different keywords, some queries, the keyword phrases that people actually use. And then you see the clicks, impressions, the click-through rate, and the position. So position being like for, let's say if this lined up better, it would be Star Wars character parties and, you know, position 1. So no one else, you know, was ranking for that. And, you know, some other keywords that people were, they were doing very well on. So this site was doing quite well in a number of categories because it's all on the first page. The thing that had the lowest would probably be the kid's birthday party in this, if this was real data for that. You can also click on the words. So let's say this was social media ideas, and I just put a blog on towards the end of December about social media ideas. And so I wasn't ranking for anything there or being shown in any impressions. So just gotten on the charts. But this is what you would see, like if it had been ranking all along or if it's tailing off, then you know that that's content that's starting to fail and maybe needs to be more robust. Same thing, you click on pages and then you can delve into one of these pages and you can see what that traffic looks like at the top. So here is a page that disappears. So it was either redirected or taken off the website. And then here's where it was redirected to. So that was the performance. So URL inspection is kind of cool. This is where you can put in any URL from the website, and you can see I've tried a few of them. And what it tells you is it'll give you an indication as to how well that page can be crawled and indexed if it's already indexed, if there's any crawl errors in the page. So when you add, let's say you add a new page, within a day or two, Google will crawl it. And sometimes, you know, within that first day, but let's say you change, let's say the home page, maybe the home page isn't crawled as often, and you want to quickly get that updated. You can inspect it, and then if the page is changed, you can click on an option to have it be in a queue to be indexed more quickly. So this is where you can submit a new URL. So that's pretty cool. Coverage has to do, remember we talked about the crawling and indexing? It talks about the crawling part of it. So it tells you if there's errors, if there's valid with warning, if it's valid, or if there's pages that are excluded. Pages that might be excluded would be like if there's 2 versions of a page, they'll pick one to be the canonical, the more the page that they're going to show in search, the page that they think is more relevant. So let's say somebody has a mobile page and a home, home page on mobile and a home page on the desktop, and they're different. It will choose one or the other to show in search. But when you click on this, you can actually see what might be a problem. Like these are pages that were excluded. So you can see there was a crawl anomaly on 69 pages. You click on this and you can find out what those 69 pages were. There's a couple of 404 errors, or actually quite a few, 36. So you can click on those and see why those are 404 errors. Sometimes like a client will, start to put in a wrong URL, a misspelling, or it defaulted to, sample page or something like that. And so you might find some of that kind of garbage in there that you're not too concerned about, but then there's a whole, but you may find something that you don't want to be a 404 page that's there. And then pages that are redirected are appropriately excluded from search. So things like that. And then here's a crawl error. You can see there's 2 crawl errors on this. It was submitted URL marked no index. And so then you could click on those and see what those 2 pages were. I was going to show you, I think I must show you under mobile. Okay, sitemaps. Sitemaps, you want to always submit a sitemap, and that will get you crawled the fastest. And as long as you have a sitemap in here, and I've submitted different sitemaps for the categories or the pages or the posts, and you can see the different rates that they that it reads the different sitemap. And you can see here, I made a typo. I had products-sitemap.xml, and couldn't fetch it. I'm like, huh? Oh, it was supposed to be product sitemap. And then it were fetched just fine. And the last time it was fetched was February 5th. So they expect the products to change more often because they fetch that page more often. And you usually will see that like a page sitemap, the major pages, they're maybe not going to crawl quite as often because that's not as likely to change as, let's say, posts might or stores might. Removal. This is an interesting tool. So this is kind of like your emergency stopgap. Let's say I don't know, the client gives you some data, you post it, and they find out, oh no, my boss is going to kill me. I can't have that on indexing. The SEC is going to be after us or something. This is your emergency valve here. You submit the request through here, and there's I have some links and stuff on that handout too that tell you what to do about permanently removing it. This would remove it for 6 months. It's a temporary thing. It doesn't remove it from the internet, but it removes it from search so that Google won't be showing it. So if you need to, like, an emergency stopgap for something, you can put in a URL here and get that removed. And then what you don't do is you don't use this for other people's sites. You can't get other people removed. And 404s will naturally drop off on their own, so you don't usually need to put those in there. But if you just want your site to be redirected, there's some pretty specific instructions about how to remove pages. Generally, a 301 redirect is what you want to do for pages that are combined or a page that's replacing a page. Here we are, Core Web Vitals. This is what's coming in May. And if the site is more of an enterprise site, some of you may have seen this where you've seen data in this field. Most sites I've looked at do not have data yet. And what they have is this. This might start to look familiar. And it goes to a page like this where you put your web URL in. So it's the very same thing. It returns the largest contentful paint, the FID, the first time to interactive, and the third one, the shifting one. So that's what you'd find there. Mobile usability. don't worry too much about how many pages. Like this one says there's 5 pages that are mobilely useful. What they do is they do a sample of pages. So if you don't think that your other pages aren't mobile friendly, they're just doing like a sample. But this page has errors on it. And what they had, and this is very common with on some of these things, is the text is too small to read, or the clickable elements are too close together. What is clickable elements too close together? It means that you might have like text and a button that are too close together, or 2 buttons that are too close together. So, just think of fat fingering it. You're trying to click on something and you might accidentally click on the wrong button, and that's not a good user experience. So Google will call you out for that. Just a few more slides, folks. And then, so now we're down, I'm going to slide down site links. I'm going to skip AMP because that is going away. From what I understand, it's going away, at least on this, I think on the tool coming with some of the other changes that are coming. And I'm going to scroll. If you scroll all the way down past here, you see how this picks up the core web vitals here. And you're going to scroll all the way down to links. And what it'll show you is a page that looks like this. This is external links. So these are the top link. Here's the top link pages. So these are the pages that are, let's say if this is my website, it's not, that homepage would have 8,000 links to it. This was actually for a client site, the actual data that's under here. And then the top linking sites, like Yellow Pages was one of the top linking sites. If you scroll down more, I'll show you what that looks like in a second, because there's some useful information there. And then the internal links are the pages that you're linking to back and forth. So you may have like a page that's really important to you. And if you don't have links to that page very much, let's say you have a services page that's like your main core service and you want to highlight that, but you don't have a lot of links to it, you want to make sure that your posts and your blogs and your other pages are linking to that page with that kind of key phrase that talks about that service. And you want to make sure. So this is one way to look at the performance. Under the top linking sites, what I like here is you can see like the top linked pages, you can see like when you look at all of them, what are some of the pages that people are linking to? So what are they liking that they're linking to in your site? And then the top linking text, which is interesting. I left this one. It was like gift certificates. So people are putting in links just to get to the gift certificates, or something, some other keywords. And sometimes you'll see some of those things like website, and someone just clicked to that. But if they are using some of the keywords, it's another way to come up with some phrases and what's important to some of your users. So yeah, here's like some of the top linking text for this is real text. This was some on mine. So, the homepage, visit website, that's not too helpful. But then there were some other ones, marketing services for medium and small businesses. Someone was interested in that. Always lead with strategy, SEO training and services, 20 easy ways you can add value for your customers. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. So that's something, and that's content I know is ranking well. So that gives some different viewpoints. So hopefully you know about some of the important Google algorithm ranking signals for 2021, that you know how to use Google Analytics and especially Google Search Console tools to check your site's performance, and that you understand the 2 algorithm changes that are coming, and learn, hopefully you've learned a few misconceptions. Oh, I didn't really focus on those enough. So a couple of things that are misconceptions are, one is duplicate content. People are always worried now about duplicate content. And if you have a whole page that's duplicated or very close to duplicated, that is a problem. And they'll just mark one as a canonical and toss the other one into the excluded pages. But it's very common to have some content, let's say a footer of a page or something that's common across all pages. Maybe, they sign up for your blog or whatever across the bottom of all your pages, or you have your contact information across all the bottom of the pages. And Google says that's to be expected and not to freak out about that. Now, if your content at the top is very similar, that's more of a problem. Another misconception, well, maybe we can get into the questions and answer some more of the misconceptions that way. So you want to take care of your website. You want to give it some love. You want to track it. I try to track my sites at least monthly, just from a time standpoint. And we're ready for questions. I think I'll stop sharing if that's okay. And
yep. Yeah, there are some questions out there, Nancy. I can read a few off here.
That would be awesome. Thanks so much.
Yes. Okay. There was one mention of adding keywords using spans and hiding them, which I believe is referred to as keyword stuffing.
There's two keyword stuffing is putting a lot of keywords in the text. Like this, there's an old SEO joke that says, did you hear the one about the nun that walked into a tavern, a bar, a saloon, watering hole, it's like that kind of, that's keyword stuffing. And that is, you will be penalized for keyword stuffing. The other thing about like putting a bunch of keywords, people used to try tricks like putting the words on a white page. And that's the kind of stuff Google will penalize you for, and it won't help you at all to do things like that, because it's way smarter than that, with all the sophistication that they have. That will not be helpful. In fact, there's a whole list. If you go to the Google Support Center, there's a whole list of things that aren't good, cloaking, or, like saying you're one kind of site and then, people click on it and, it goes to like a porn site or something like that. Google's very sensitive to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And tries to make sure that, what users are expecting to get, they get. Mm-hmm. Plus, if you're hiding a bunch of keywords, it's probably not useful content for your users either.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And there's another question from Rose. I'm going to read it as it shows here. My older site had a lot more copy on the homepage, but now my new template has video and images and short headlines, products, but no real blocks of useful text. So how do we make sure the spiders have some info to crawl and grab the info? How do I communicate what the site is about?
Okay. Some great information in there. So great question. For one thing, I would probably put more words on the pages. The other thing you would do is in your alt tag. So when you have an image, you can describe that image. You want to do two things. You want to have the file name itself that you upload, having what the picture is about. So instead of saying headshot, left side, which tells Google absolutely nothing, that you say, Michael Scampini, Toastmaster at, yes, and, Elementor or whatever, and have the details in there about who that is and what that picture is about.
Sure.
And that will help give Google some information. Another thing with video, and I put this in the handout too, is with certain kinds of content, you can use rich results. And rich results are where, like, a good example of a rich result is a recipe. It's where you use structured data, and it, like, a recipe has like maybe a little picture, and by putting this special like structured data content in there, like where you say, this is the picture of the recipe, this is the title of the recipe, these are the ingredients in the recipe, and then Google knows, like, it's marked in a certain way so that Google knows how to organize it. The same kind of thing can be done for a video, and a video can be crawled then in such a way that it is useful. Another thing you want to have on your video is captions. You want to have the option of having those words there. Again, Google, bots don't read pictures. They need some text and some code to understand what the pictures and videos are about. So words definitely help. You just want to put them in a way that so it's not just like I said, bricks of content where, you know, it has to be a good user experience. So you're balancing that all the time. You know, what is robust content, you know, that they use, but it also has to be that the bots can crawl, but it also has to be so that it's digestible by the reader.
Okay, good.
Hope that
Very good.
helps.
Yeah. All right, let me scroll back up. There was a question from, it was Sam. Okay, here it is. From Sam Grice. How do you speed up first contentful paint? The video Google showed namely uses CSS inlining and JavaScript inlining, which doesn't help anything when I try it.
I am not, I should have said this in the beginning. I am not a coder or developer. I am still trying to figure those kinds of things out myself. So I wish I could be of more help, but I'm sure that would be a great upcoming, for if someone figures that out, be a great upcoming event for you to host. So based on what, you know, you can click on, they'll give you some ideas of how to do that. But if you're not a coder, you probably need to hire someone who can work with the code or knows how to make it work faster.
Yeah, sure.
So,
That's good.
sorry.
There was some discussion on rank math. Are you familiar with rank math? Can you speak to that?
Rank math. I talked about rank brain, but I don't know about rank math.
Okay. Yeah, there were a few people that mentioned it. I know, and there was a question in the survey about it. So we can save that. Oh, that's okay. We can save that for the end because I know there's some folks in here that we can circle back to that use that.
Okay.
Okay, good. Let's see. I know there's a few more. People are discussing where to find Elementor tutorials. Okay, here is. Does anybody have any questions they want to speak out while I am searching through the chat here, trying to find the questions? Anybody have anything?
Go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, so I have a question about the new Google Analytics. Do you have any insight into that new view of it? Just because I've been taking a look at it and it is so hard to understand after looking at the one that we're most familiar with. Like I cannot find the things that I know how to find in the previous version.
I agree.
So you're on the same page.
Yes, and it's still in flux. That's what I was talking about when I talked to the person this week. You know, they're saying it's still in flux. Give your feedback, say, you know, write to them. And they, you know, when they have the little thing, like, can you find what you're looking for? Or did this answer your question? Tell them, no, it didn't. I'm missing this. Where's this? Because it's still in flux. I would consider, even though it's supposedly out of beta, I would consider it still kind of in beta.
Okay.
But I think it's worth, like we said, adding it as a property and starting to look at it. And
yeah, so what I've started doing is I've started adding both tags to my site, the new Google Analytics tag and the old Google Analytics tag, just for like future proofing. But at the same time, I do not understand the new Google Analytics view whatsoever.
Yeah, I think that would be that's going to be big.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, it can be more help.
No worries. I don't think too many people know much about it.
Yeah.
Nancy, hi, this is Jim. Thank you for this excellent presentation. Question. Have you heard anything as to whether or not Google is going to start taking into consideration WCAG standards in terms of their ranking algorithm?
Tell me what WCAT standards are.
That's the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and there have been rising number of lawsuits against websites.
Actually, kind of interesting, because when that came up, somebody asked some questions about that, and John Mueller said he didn't really know much about that, which I thought was very interesting. Now, maybe people on his team may, but I think that I'm not sure that some of the stuff that we're doing already makes it more usable, putting alt text on. Oh, and by the way, alt text is going to be important for the mobile one too. That was another thing I didn't say. But having the alt text on the images and things like that. But as far as like contrast and things like that, I don't think that they're really looking at that yet. There hasn't been a lot of discussion about that. I hear a lot about that locally here, but I haven't heard that at all on the webmaster calls.
Yeah, because it has been rising in importance and also in terms of consternation, because lawsuits are being brought against businesses that, it is said that their website isn't handicapped accessible. And it seems that, like, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, the court cases come down all over the map. So
and there's some guidelines to that. Like if you have less than 15 employees and you're not selling stuff on your site or something, like it doesn't apply to you. And there's some other different things on that too.
Now, I haven't heard that with respect to the accessibility guidelines.
That's if you look at the ADA Act, that's what it says. In
the ADA Act, okay.
Yeah, which is where this accessibility thing is coming from.
Well, the WCAG is not, it's just some guidelines, it's some web that the W3 folks came up with. And the suits were brought under the ADA, I forget which section it is. And they pointed to these guidelines, which are not legal documents, but the WCAG guidelines have been used to provide the basis for which businesses were sued. They could say, well, see, they're not conforming to these guidelines. And I think that's in part why case results have been kind of all over the map, because there's nothing legally binding about the guidelines.
Yeah, I would go more in the ADA Act because that's law. So.
Thank you, Nancy.
I don't know. I'm not an attorney and I can't.
Yeah, me neither.
I can't comment on that. Let the record show.
There is, excuse me, I jump in that regard. There is basically a consensus that any publicly accessible location has to be ADA compliant. And there is nothing more publicly accessible location than a website. And that's what the attorneys are doing, and forcing people, regardless of the number of employees, the size of the site, or whatever. I mean, as long as it is publicly accessible and there is nothing more than the website, you've got to be ADA compliant. We're very much into that. We've been working on that for about 2 years so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a good course that I took. It's free. You can do it on, I think it's called edX. It's an introduction to web accessibility. You can pay for a certificate as well, which I did. I think it was like 75 or 80 bucks for the certificate, but you can do the class for free if you wanted to. It's definitely good because it shows you things that you may not have realized, like making sure you have alternative text when you have videos on your website, captions and things like that. So it is, I believe it's very important to have that in line for sure if you're going to be doing websites for clients or for yourself even.
Yeah, I just was answering in terms of SEO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there is nothing more handicapped than a Google bot. So you better write it correctly. You have to take care of the way you handle the H tags and things like that.
Yeah,
are not only good for accessibility, but also good for SEO.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely good to have both because it's a win-win for sure. It does take some more time overall. Okay, we had a question from someone, I can't find it now. They asked if you should go mobile first or desktop first. What does everybody, Nancy, you want to go first? What do you think? When you're building a website, should you think mobile first or desktop first?
If you're thinking, if you're, well, kind of a loaded question, I suppose. I think, it always comes back to your audience and where's your audience going to be using it. But if you want to get from an SEO standpoint, it's, you need to be mobile friendly. I mean, you need to be thinking mobile. And that's what's going to be in the search results starting next month. So I would definitely, I would think both are important, but, for some audiences, it's going to be even more important on one or the other. But, in terms of search and search engine return pages, you'd have to think about mobile.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Good. Yeah, I agree. Mobile first. It's mostly. Okay. Who else has some
mobile
questions?
only. Like we've had mobile first indexing for a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
but mobile only is coming next month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Good. Pete?
Hi, thanks, Nancy. I'm interested in schema markup, and we use SEO Press with WordPress and Elementor, and I'm a designer, and I know our marketing team does a little bit, and I think they just kind of focus on the main ones. And you mentioned like recipes, I know is a big one. Events is another one where it can add a lot of value to search because it gives Google a better idea of like what the content is, but it's really confusing to me, and like I don't know how much we should do for our clients, like how much value it's going to add. And actually it could probably tie into the accessibility thing if it could add value to bots understanding the content.
Yeah. So here's the thing. It's not necessarily a ranking factor, at least not yet, but Google does recommend it. What it does do is it's, I don't want to say eye candy exactly, but it attracts people, and people click on it and people like it and are more likely to choose it. And when people choose it more, what happens with RankBrain? RankBrain says, oh, people like this way it's set up better than that way. And so your site will actually do better by having that. And Google puts out a list of what they are currently looking for. And I know videos is one that I have to get into more. And, obviously posts, articles, blogs. So there's ways to.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, like how it shows in search with like extra, besides just the metadata, it's going to show like a date or
Right.
preview.
Right. Yes, like for events. Yes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Pete. Who else has questions?
I have a question.
Hey, Maureen.
Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Nancy.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. I'm getting a lot out of this.
Good.
Pete, I didn't catch what you said at first, that your agency is using something schema. Can you repeat that?
Use SEO Press. It's like Yoast, or I think it's actually the one you guys were talking about, like RankBrain would be a competitor. We actually switched from Yoast, but it's called SEO Press. And then it gives you, the control of metas and Open Graph and all of the SEO plugin stuff that you get, but it's what we use for schema markup also.
And how's that going?
So far, so good. We have some issues with the cookie bar where it gives two options, and we don't like that because if people are clicking, it's confusing, and they're clicking the close, which is not adding consent. So we've had our developers like hide that one, but otherwise it's good. I forget the exact reasons, but we've been preferring it over Yoast.
That's reminding me about one of the misconceptions, and that is that you can only have one H1 on a page. Google says they expect that there may be more than one H1, especially the way that mobile pages are set up today, where you might scroll like on a home page, there might be more than one H1. And, it's more of a hierarchy for how the bots read it than that there's any sort of penalty for having a second H1 on the page. just kind of surprising.
Yeah, that is. I was always taught
Right, 'cause-
one H1 per page. Yeah.
Yeah, and it used to be that way, but they expect now the way things have changed. And a lot of times you're pulling in, some of those other pages onto your homepage to like link to them. And so that would be more than one H1. And they say they think that that's kind of expected.
Actually, what they expect is of the H tags giving a hierarchy and not use the H tags for text formatting. But many people make that mistake. Formatting text, just I want it big, so it's going to be an H1. I want it medium, so I'd make it an H2. No, that's a no. Because you end up with a mix that, especially for accessibility, the screen reader is not going to understand the website, so the website is going to end up not being ADA compliant because little details like that. So use the H1s for like the same thing in a book. You have one title, several chapters, sub-chapters, and so on. So that's one H1, several H2s. Don't keep H3s to go to H4s, things like that. The handling of H tags is quite important for both
And
SEO
it helps
and
the robots understand how to prioritize content.
yes.
Very good. Thanks, Maureen. Any other questions?
Yeah, so just to clarify, we've talked about Rank Math and Rank Brain. So Rank Math is the SEO and WordPress tool. Rank Brain is Google's proprietary artificial intelligence, machine learning.
Okay.
So it's a little confusing. Ranking.
I was actually watching Eagle Eye yesterday, so this is right up the alley of that movie. If anybody's ever seen Eagle Eye, I've never seen it before. I don't know how I missed it, but it's pretty good. Yep, that'll make you scared of Google. Let's see.
Well, I have a handout on the, I can show you maybe what the handout looks like while we're pulling up some more questions. Let me pull that up.
Yeah, that'd be great. I posted the link out there, and if everybody wants to see that, you can download it from there. But yeah, go ahead, Nancy, and let's.
Yeah,
let's
let me just find a version of it on my site here. And
Just looking at my notes and had one. I don't know if Nancy or anyone else has seen. We've noticed this. We think Google has it as an A/B test form at this point, but it's not the experience where a page actually, you are given the pagination. It's just a continuous list of search results. So it's just loading and loading and loading. And
well, that's kind of how mobile works, right? I mean, yeah, mobile changed. And that's why I was kind of surprised that graph hasn't really changed yet. Now we'll see when after March and then again after May, if that curve, that slope of that curve, that kind of, what is it, like I don't know, was it a parabola or whatever it was, the kind of the sloping down curve there, that it hasn't changed that much over the years. We're still clicking on those first couple of things and not scrolling as much, even though we have the infinite scrolling. So this is kind of what the handout looks like if you clicked on it. So we have links to that video, the YouTube, the trillions of questions, which is interesting, the webmaster guidelines. And this is just a wealth of information for you in terms of how to set up sites and what Google wants you to do. The SEO checklist, that's from me. That's just like a one-page thing to look at for kind of mostly on-page factors. Do you have a meta description? Do you have a title tag? Is it about this long or that long? That kind of thing. How to set up Google Search Console. I noticed people had said that it didn't sound like a lot of people were using it yet, so I thought I'd put that in there. And then here's a good resource for the mobile only indexing that's coming in March. And then here's some information about the Google page experience update that is coming. And then this was on the no intrusive interstitials. When the page loads, that kind of that, when I talked about being kind of jiggy, that with it kind of moving around a little bit for the cumulative layout shift, the CLS. One of the things that tends to interfere with that is having, like kind of pop-ups at the top of the page. Like maybe it's better to have your pop-ups lower on the page if you're going to have them, but these intrusive interstitials or things that pop in and kind of annoy your person and go in front of the content and that kind of thing. That's how you'll see Google's opinion of that. And then that site speed, like if you want it to go right to the site speed recommendations on something, you can click on this, and then a little bit more details about what these things are supposed to be. And then I was trying to keep it to one page, but it didn't work. So this is about these are those quality guidelines I talked about, the 178 page guidelines for expertise, authority, and trust. These are for the content. So these are like actually what is going on, the words on the page. And then structured data. This is, you had said, sorry, I didn't catch your name, but you were talking about being very interested in structured data and rich results. So here's what Google has to say about them. And then here's the how to optimize a video. And I have that on there twice. Oh, and this is kind of an interesting one. It's the history of Google algorithm updates. And so we'll tell you about every time there's a Google algorithm change, like a major one, not the 6 times a day, but they'll have that in there, and they'll, they keep an historical record of that that you can see. So hopefully you'll find that useful. I wanted to give you something to follow up that might be, quicker links to things and that kind of thing, rather than trying to go to page 65 of the video.
Awesome. Thanks, Nancy.
Sure.
Good stuff. All right, who else has questions? We got a little bit of time left. Buddy? Does anybody have any Elementor questions in general, if it's not about Google? I know there are a couple people that asked where to find some guidance on Elementor. They have an awesome knowledge base out there on their website. Also, there's a lot of people that YouTube about Elementor, so you can find some good stuff. I know one guy, I think his name is like WebMonkey or something like that. He has a good YouTube video of how to build a site from scratch. So there's some good stuff out there. If you're interested in Elementor, if you are on the fence of switching to it, there are some options.
Mike, I have a suggestion, actually following up on something Nancy had said earlier.
Mhm.
I think we should have a session on how to speed up Elementor. I'm gonna try switching, try to figure out if Elementor is slowing my sites down. Either I'm not working them real well, or Elementor slowing them down, or maybe it's my server, my host. But talking about what Nancy had mentioned about that first paint, if there are developers here that can help with that, figure out what we do, where we go, how to speed up sites, whether it's because of Elementor or something else we're doing, I think that would be really, really good.
Yeah, Pete? You're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, it's one we run into all the time, and our developers know about it. It's kind of just a Elementor issue, but I can point out a few things that could help. And I think the first one would be using a theme that's built for Elementor, if it's Hello or I think Astra, or one that's built for a page builder. And then the other big one we've noticed is just killing any plugins you're not using. So we have like, add-ons and jet elements and jet tricks and all the nice plugins that we know of and know how to use. But if it's unused, there's a way to turn off all of them, because that will load up. Even if it's a plugin you're not using in the set, it tends to like load them all. And I know it's the last one, they are aware of it, and the next version that's coming is supposed to be having speed performance updates.
Pete, do you also use any kind of a caching plugin?
Yep.
What do you use?
We were using like Smush for a while. I forget I can check right now, actually.
I've had really good luck with WP Rocket. That's gotten my.
That's the one.
That's got
That's the
my
one we're
load
using
time.
now.
I mean, I'm less than a second between pages with that and the hello.
Oh,
thing.
nice. Yeah, that's the one we're using at the moment.
Mhm.
It's still not as fast as I'd like, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just built a site for my wife to start a business with Webflow, and it's like insanely fast. And
yeah,
I know part of that's probably because they have AWS
Mhm.
for the hosting. Which
What was that?
to answer your
Webflow, you
question,
said?
Webflow, yeah.
Webflow. Okay, I've heard of that. Interesting.
As a designer, it's amazing.
Yeah, I was asking a question at the beginning if anyone heard about Oxygen, because what caught my attention about that page builder was how fast the page loads are compared to Elementor. That I was debating making the switch from Elementor to Oxygen.
We've looked into that too. They've actually copied some of the UI from Webflow.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that's what I noticed about it. It looked a lot like a mix between Webflow and Elementor almost.
And I think Webflow's Elementor's gonna get there too. Like I'm sure they're pushing for an update that has that. And the main thing we're interested in is classes on things like sections, where there's a way more global control over things. So if design changes, it doesn't have to change on every single template.
Yeah, if you inspect the page, there's just so many. It's like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking too about cutting down on some of the Elementor animations, and I'm wondering if that will also help speed it up, like a slideshow or these flip boxes. I'm wondering what kind of effect that has on speed.
Yeah, I think a good rule to follow is to be intentional. That's my word of the year: intentional. Trying to just be intentional with everything I'm doing. So anything you're putting on your pages, whether it's effects or anything else, make sure you have a good reason for it. Make sure it aligns with what you're doing. I think that'll help you as a guide. Sometimes when things are bouncing around too much, it makes me dizzy anyway. I'm more on less effects. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I think oftentimes we get saddled with clients who have underestimated the value of premium web hosting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, and then they want blazing fast page loads, and it's just not going to happen. I have a client. Actually, she's not a client. I've done some subcontract work for her, so I guess she's a client. But she's got an Elementor site that is live, but periodically, sometimes the update button, the publish button in Elementor doesn't show up in Chrome, even after she's made changes. Has anybody ever come across that?
No.
Okay, so she's got an X on her.
I would suggest looking. It could be caching, or sometimes if you don't Chrome may not update on its own. I've had it happen before where I looked, I'm like, oh my God, my Chrome's not up to date. So make sure they check their version of Google Chrome would be another thing that may help.
Yeah, I had to update my Chrome the last time too. I thought it always updated itself, but apparently not anymore.
If that doesn't work, the all magic reset button, just reboot your computer. That always does the trick. And then your router while you're at it.
Yeah, that wasn't working for her. We walked her through that, but and it's frustrating for her just because she's a total noob. So yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem, Chris. Cool. And somebody put out there, what host does everybody recommend? I use SiteGround and WP Engine. Those are the ones I use. I have the SiteGround Cloud hosting, works really well. It's pretty quick. WP Engine's awesome too. They have both have really good customer support overall, so it's good. And then if you're using WP Engine and you use local to build your sites, it's very easy to push your site up and down onto WP Engine. If you're using SiteGround, there's a way to do it. It's just takes a little more time. What about you guys? What's everybody using? If you want to share.
SiteGround.
Flywheel.
Flywheel. Yep.
WP Engine.
Yep. It is now. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
I use SiteGround.
SiteGround. Good.
SiteGround.
Cool. I've actually used Bluehost as well. A long time ago, I used it. I didn't like it, but recently I worked with someone on it, and they have good support, and his site's pretty fast, so it works pretty good. And it's cost wise, it's definitely.
So you understand what's important. That's not because all the fix the problems. Nothing.
But like I'm almost done at school.
Yeah. But at least 1 year, right? No.
I don't know if.
No, when your mom is here, you say your mom want to stay in Toronto. No, you
Uh-oh.
cannot sell.
I'm trying to figure out who that is.
Sorry.
Hello, can you mute, please?
Sarah, Tanya. There we go.
Thank you.
Mike, thanks for commenting on Bluehost, because that's what I'm going to be using.
Yeah, sure. I by no means endorse any of those. I use it. There's some experience, so I can't guarantee anything.
Just don't use GoDaddy.
Don't use GoDaddy for anything.
Yeah.
God Almighty, I spent several years over there on one of their custom website builders. Damn thing didn't have SEO, and what it claimed was SEO didn't do squat.
Yeah, and they locked me out of one of my sites because for some reason they thought I wasn't verified. I was working with somebody on the site, and yeah, that was a big hassle. That took a half a day of my time. So all the domains I have bought through there, I've been switching over to Cloudflare because Cloudflare does transfers now, so it's cheaper.
I just transferred over to Bluehost, so I have the two in the same place for the time being.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Anybody else have anything before we finish up?
Just any all that content was going to cover 2 hours easily, but
yeah.
Yeah, I have to confess that I was on GoDaddy support. That's why I had to go off camera, which was a mistake. I should have just hung up and listened to you guys. But Nancy, you're awesome. Okay, you're so knowledgeable. I really loved hearing you to the degree I could. Some of the stuff you said I did know about, a lot of it I didn't. What I got just as a 50,000 foot view from what you were sharing is there's a lot that's constantly changing. Okay, and I compared it to a 13-year-old girl's set of boyfriends, so it's like it's just constantly changing, like never lasts more than a few days, right? So would you agree with that statement, Nancy? Just as a
I really understand why you might feel that way, but what really it is, I would say it's more evolving than changing. Yeah, there's the little tweaks they change all day long to throw off the spammers and things like that. But in terms of like the things that they're doing and talking about, it's gradual. Like they're saying mobile first. Now mobile only, and it's been happening since like 2016. So that's like 5 years, They say, gee, we really, we don't require that you have an SSL, but we really, think it's a good thing. When they start saying, we think it's a good thing, like right now they're saying, well, structured data isn't really necessarily a ranking factor, but we really think it's a good thing. Like I'm, you kind of notice the pattern and go, okay, that maybe it's a really good thing.
So would you say me going?
Tell me which way to go, huh?
So do you think that going through the Yoast University classes is valuable, Nancy? I was going to go through all of their classes.
What I would really, it depends how you like to learn, I guess. I don't really know much about the Yoast University classes, I'll be honest. I just keep going to Google. I mean, they control, good 90% of search. And as Google goes, so do the others. And I just think that I usually go to Google. I go to their support tools. So a lot of those links that I read those. And that's where I've gotten a lot of my information. I also attend their office hours, which are on YouTube. They're usually at about 2 a.m. because he does them out of Switzerland. And it's on morning that I have like a 7:30 a.m. So I don't think I've ever attended that one live. But I watch them every week anyway on YouTube. But they do get bogged down in a lot of people's own personal issues, in terms of their own, I've got this website that, so it takes a little longer, but you do get information from it. If you have any questions, he'll answer them for you. I mean, I've had questions, I put them in the YouTube, question list, and I've had my questions answered I just like have to listen to the next recording and he'll answer them, and, they'll chime in and they'll have, they'll tell you what they think about what you're saying. Yeah.
Do you work with people individually, or do you have like set plans you put them on, or do you have a per hour rate or anything? Is that all on your website?
A couple different things. Yeah, I work with people, but it's all individual really, because the first thing I start with is an audit. So what's working and what is an opportunity? And so, the opportunities, then, we come together with a plan. And what I try to do is work the plan as much as possible up front. And even if the payments are over several months, because a lot of times I'm working with small clients and, they can't afford to pay for everything all at once, but I want to get the work done for them so that they can start to get that effect, because it's going to take a little bit to creep up. So if I can do the work and get it, starting to creep up while they're continuing to pay it, then they'll have hopefully more money in their coffers to pay for it because it's doing better. Yes, so I have an hourly rate of $125. I do an audit, usually depends on the site, but like $350 to $750, something like that. Unless it's a huge enterprise site, then we'd have to negotiate.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris, you're on mute.
Yep, I know.
Oh, that's right. I'm not supposed to sell. I wasn't trying to.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yes.
He asked.
I solicited for your information. So
Hey, no, I didn't mean to do that. I was like, I just.
Oh,
did
no
that.
worries. You're good. You're good. Chris?
Yeah, I think something that everybody needs to keep in mind and remember about Google and just how big an 800-pound gorilla dancing on your coffee table is that every other search company on the planet buys search data from Google. That's from Baidu all the way back to Yahoo. They all buy their data. And I can't stress the importance of setting your clients' Google My Business account up correctly and tying in everything that they ever do on the internet to that account. You can make amazing shifts in search results in other engines by doing that in Google. It'll blow your mind if you do it correctly. I've seen people go in 45 minutes, go from 32nd page of search results in a Yahoo store search to the second page in 45 minutes by doing it correctly.
Wow.
And Nancy knows how to do that.
Thanks, Chris.
Here's a
Thanks,
nice
Chris.
plug.
Yeah, good points.